United States was not going to give up until we did find Saddam.
We didn't just overthrow Saddam, we overthrew a political structure.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Hegseth hosting Ace of Spades on Fox Nation. You can catch it by subscribing. Just log on to foxnation.com and hit the Join Now tab. Pete, that looks really good.
It was just as much fun to make it as it will be to watch it. I'm telling you, this is one of the coolest things about Fox Nation. You can go deep on stories that you think you know until you watch it again. And you realize it's the guys on the ground. It's the interrogators. It's the luck. They found the right guy. He was there. They didn't know it. The guy that they flip. You know, just the web that it took to find the most. We forget Saddam was the most wanted man in the world, and we couldn't find him.
And then he crawled out of a hole.
And then we pulled him out of a hole.
But there you go. The thing that I love the most about Fox Nation is that they find the thing that everybody is most passionate about, and then they let you guys go do it, and it makes it so much better to watch because you watch someone just loving what it is that they're investigating and doing, and I can see your enthusiasm. I can't wait till they think of something for me, but yes.
They will.
Yeah.
They will. Stay tuned. Stay tuned.
But this one looks fantastic.
She knows her stuff. Miriam, who put it together, I mean, it's really well done. Check it out. Fox Nation. You'll see stuff like
this. By the way,
it's like Netflix for conservatives.
This sounds like a show I would really like.
Yeah.
Seriously. I love history.
There you go. All right, that does it for us. We are back here at noon Eastern tomorrow. Now, here's Harris.
Breaking news, Fox News alert on this controversy multiplying in the state of Virginia, the Commonwealth, as another lawmaker in line of succession to taking over as governor, should that need to happen, has now admitted wearing blackface decades ago. You're watching Outnumbered Overtime. I'm Harris Faulkner. Attorney General Mark Herring has released a statement saying in 1980, he used brown makeup and a wig to look like a rapper for a party. The revelation comes as Virginia's current governor, Ralph Northam, and the state's lieutenant governor, Justin Fairfax, are facing their own scandals and controversies. Garrett Tenney now with the latest from Richmond, Virginia. Garrett?
Well, Harris, folks here at the Capitol are in shock. You now have the governor, lieutenant governor, and the state's attorney general facing what could be potentially career-ending controversies. The attorney general, Mark Herring, he is second in line to the governorship. He now says that when he was a 19-year-old undergrad, he and some friends dressed up like rappers and wore brown makeup to a party. In a statement, Herring says it was a one-time occurrence which has haunted him for years, adding, "That conduct clearly shows that as a young man, I had a callous and inexcusable lack of awareness and insensitivity to the pain my behavior could inflict on others. This conduct in no way is reflective of the man I've become in the nearly 40 years since." And he continues, "In the days ahead, honest conversations and discussions will make it clear whether I can or should continue to serve as Attorney General." And one of the state's two Democratic senators reacted to this news a short time ago.
Listen, I'm shocked and incredibly disappointed. This has been an awful week for Virginia, but I'm just getting the original report. I'd like to get, I haven't even read statements yet.
Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax, meanwhile, is changing his tone about the woman who accuses him of sexual assault. After previously attacking the credibility of 42-year-old Vanessa Tyson, he released a statement today saying, "While this allegation has been both surprising and hurtful, I also recognize that no one makes charges of this kind lightly, and I take it in this situation very seriously. I wish her no harm or humiliation, nor do I seek to denigrate her or diminish her voice, but I cannot agree with a description of events that I know is not true." And in case you're wondering, Harris, who is fourth in line to the governorship, that would be the Speaker of the House of Delegates, who, unlike the three men ahead of him, is a Republican. Harris?
Yes, and he issued a statement, Kirk Cox did, a couple of days ago calling for the resignation of Governor Northam. So we will cover the news as it happens, and around we go. Garrett, thank you very much. Another Fox News alert. We're awaiting President Trump's first remarks since his State of the Union address last night after he called for national unity, while at the same time digging in on his border wall. Democrats not buying the president's calls for partisanship, including Senate Democrat leader Chuck Schumer, as talks continue today to avoid another government shutdown 9 days from now.
There's very little nice to say about it. It's sort of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
And the excitement, enthusiasm was all in the Mr. Hyde parts. The president was political, divisive, calculating, even nasty at times. You know, you can't talk about comity and working together and give a speech that is so divisive. That just doesn't fly.
Chief White House correspondent now joins us from the North Lawn, John Roberts.
And Harris, good afternoon to you. You heard the Senate Minority Leader there say that the most enthusiastic and exciting moments of President Trump's speech last night were when he was playing the part of Mr. Hyde. Well, this was probably the most exciting and enthusiastic part of the speech last night, and you decide whether you think the president was Mr. Hyde or Dr. Jekyll. Listen here.
All Americans can be proud that we have more women in the workforce than ever before. Don't sit yet. You're going to like this. And exactly 1 century after Congress passed the constitutional amendment giving women the right to vote, we also have more women serving in Congress than at any time before.
Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde? You decide. Now, no question the speech was written in a way to initiate a response from Democrats, and the president certainly didn't back off from his central issue of building a barrier along parts of the southern border. The conference committee, by the way, tasked with trying to come up with border security and reopen government, heard from Customs and Border Protection officials this morning about what they see as the need for a wall today. But the president again last night promoted legal immigration, even going off script for a moment to talk about the numbers of legal immigrants that he'd like to see in the U.S. Listen here.
I want people to come into our country in the largest numbers ever, but they have to come in legally.
Now, the words largest numbers ever were not contained in the script. He ad-libbed that part, but he earned the ire of Democrats for what he said about the many investigations going on around him. Listen here.
An economic miracle is taking place in the United States, and the only thing that can stop it are foolish wars, politics, or ridiculous partisan investigations. If there is going to be peace and legislation, there cannot be war and investigation. It just doesn't work that way.
So clearly that was a point of disagreement with a lot of Democrats, but at least one Democrat saw the speech much differently than Senator Chuck Schumer did. Listen to Senator Chris Coons.
There were a number of proposals in the President's State of the Union tonight that I found appealing and encouraging. There were other divisive moments, but I'll choose to focus on the spirit of commonality that at times prevailed.
We'll hear from the president for the first time in about 25 minutes when he introduces David Malpass as his nominee to head the World Bank in the Roosevelt Room. We will be there for you, Harris.
All right. John Roberts, good to see you. Thank you. Republican Senator Todd Young of Indiana is with me now, and you chair the National Republican Senatorial Committee and sit on Finance, Commerce, and Foreign Relations Committees. We could pretty much talk to you about everything. Good to have you on the program. Thank you. I want to start with where Senator Coons was and John Roberts reporting just then and talking about last night and the opportunities that he chose to focus on as a Democrat.
Well, as Senator Coons indicated, there were indeed so many different issues that the president highlighted that we can work together on. We can continue to grow this economy. We've had great success on the back end of tax reform, getting Hoosiers in particular, the folks from my state, back to work with 45,000 jobs created. That sort of thing's occurring across the country. We can continue to invest in workforce development, eradicate the scourge of childhood cancer, ensure that we strengthen our military, invest in our infrastructure. So though there were some points of principled disagreement that I think are conducive to principled compromise, like border security and ensuring that people don't come into this country illegally, which didn't used to be a partisan issue, I think in the main the president's tone, tenor, and message was incredibly unifying, and I commend him for it.
You know who didn't agree, and it's become a tradition now, the rebuttal delivered by Georgia's Stacey Abrams. Let's watch that, and then I'll discuss what you think with you.
Even as I am very disappointed by the president's approach to our problems, I still don't want him to fail. But we need him to tell the truth and to respect his duties and respect the extraordinary diversity that defines America.
She doesn't want him to fail, and that was uplifting for just a few seconds until the litany of where she thinks needs to work. Your response?
Well, look, she mentioned the diversity of the American people. I can't think of a more diverse audience than the president held up last night. He talked about how African-American unemployment is lower than it's ever been. He talked about how we have more women that are engaged in the workforce than we ever had. He talked about the number of jobs that have been created in just the 2 years since he's been in office. So on all these issues, we should be celebrating them together for the common good and building on those successes. One of the things that I thought was very important, Hunter, was the president's focus of attention on our veterans. It is so important during what remains a time of war against international terrorism and other threats to the American people that we don't forget about the people who put their life on the line for us and some who make the ultimate sacrifice. I know as a military brat, you feel strongly about this issue. I had a mother from the state of Indiana contact me before the address, Sandy Terwisky. I've come to know her well over the years. In fact, I've worn her son's bracelet on my left wrist for a number of years to honor her son. I was able to give that to the president last night because Sandy Terwisky said this president has not forgotten the sacrifices of people like her son, Alec. So that is something that ought to be unifying. If anything was unifying last night, the president's elevation of our men and women in uniform.
Well, and I appreciate you bringing up the military component. It is important to all of us here in America. I do have a military brat background. You made a video talking about the president in those common areas and how he did last night. I want to get to where the president references more women in Congress than ever before. Let's watch that.
Don't sit yet. You're going to like this. And exactly 1 century after Congress passed the constitutional amendment giving women the right to vote, we also have more women serving in Congress than at any time before.
A moment that resonated outside of that room and through television sets, no doubt, across the country. Senator Young, a quick thought on that, and then I'm going to move on to the next topic.
Well, look, we have an unfolding history as a nation of becoming a more perfect union. We still remain imperfect. There's work to do, but I think we can celebrate the fact that most of our college graduates, most of our college attendees are now females in this country. We've gone such distances, and as a father of 3 young daughters, I celebrate that fact once again. That was a unifying message and something I think we can build on in the next 2 years.
Meanwhile, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi once again signaled that she will support whatever agreement the bipartisan border security conference comes to. She first said that last week. And she says now that she is optimistic they'll meet their deadline. Here she is.
Left to their own devices, I think they can have an agreement on time by Friday. It has to be signed, the conference report, by Friday. I spoke with Senator Shelby. I told him, whatever you all come to agreement on, bipartisan agreement, I will support.
Will that change things?
Well, I like to hear those words, and I'm encouraged by that language. The people back in my home state of Indiana, like so many across the country, really want results. They want to make sure that we secure that border. And let's not draw ideological, artificial lines with respect to what that package looks like. We used to be bipartisan consensus around the idea that you not only put boots on the ground, but invest in technology to secure our border and also have physical barriers where they are required. And that's why the leadership has brought in members of the Customs Customs and Border Patrol. President Obama's head of that agency indicated that we needed actual physical fencing in certain areas. That's what President Trump's advisor says as well. As a Marine who served in Arizona, in an area with heavy narco trafficking and human trafficking going on back in the 90s, subsequently a physical barrier was placed in that area, Yuma, Arizona, and trafficking went down 95% over the roughly the next decade. So walls or barriers or structures, whatever you want to call them, do indeed work when properly and intelligently placed. And I hope that's part of the final package we can agree on.
Nancy Pelosi saying left to their own devices. Hopefully that bipartisan group can do what they need to do without a lot of influence other than the experts. Senator Young, great to have you on the program today. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me, Harris.
Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren is facing a new controversy over her Native American heritage claim. It comes just days before her expected announcement of her presidential campaign. A live report. Stay with me. Plus, President Trump is taking aim at Democrats' investigations just hours after House Judiciary Committee Chair Jerry Nadler threatened to subpoena.
Well, a newly revealed document renewing controversy for Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren, as she is expected to officially declare her run for the White House this weekend. The Washington Post obtaining a copy of Warren's 1986 registration card for the Texas State Bar, which licensed her to practice law in that state. And on it, she wrote that her race was, quote, American Indian. This is a previously unreported example and the first known instance of Warren claiming Native American ancestry in an official document and in her own handwriting. Last week, Senator Warren apologized to the Cherokee Nation for previously taking a DNA test in an attempt to prove she had Native American ancestry. The senator telling the Washington Post, "I can't go back, but I am sorry for furthering confusion on tribal sovereignty and tribal citizenship and harm that resulted." But at least one historian and member of the Cherokee Nation believes that the senator needs to go further. David Cornsilk telling the Post, "I want her to go now on national TV. I want her to do a video like she did to announce her DNA results." It just seemed very lacking. So, Pete, Elizabeth Warren has said repeatedly she never used her Native American status, which is 1/1024th maybe, to get ahead.
Yep.
Is this an example of her lying about that?
It might be. For me, the issue of her misrepresentation is that she used it for advantage.
Right.
Because being seen as a minority was advantageous to her career path at Harvard and elsewhere. I would want to know, was it advantageous in the state of Texas for her to declare that as opposed to Caucasian, say? But it also, I never give credit to Elizabeth Warren. Maybe she really thought I mean, at one moment, maybe she really thought, I was told that's what I am. I mean, I don't know. We can't know. I don't know her motivation in 1986.
I know. I want to address this contemporaneously because so it was 1986 when she wrote this, when she was getting into the bar at the time. It was 1995 when she was a Harvard professor and they listed her on their federal affirmative action forms as being Native American. Correct. When I was an undergraduate at Harvard University, there was a rule, and I know I heard Marie Harf say in the last hour, who are we to be the DNA police? Well, I'll tell you, Harvard University defined it as 1/16th Native American. I knew someone who lied on his application and checked the box and laughed and bragged and said he had gotten in and he wasn't. So this is something that people have used in order to get ahead, and it is very hard for me to give her the benefit of the doubt, especially since we've seen the DNA and we know it isn't 1/16th. There is an established, in order to claim yourself to be a minority, when you are trying to get advantages like being claimed by Harvard's forms.
Well, at least at Harvard University.
Yeah, but the Boston Globe did an investigation, and the employment records show that she was considered a white woman when hired as a law professor, both at University of Pennsylvania and then by Harvard University.
So why did they list her on the
Second
form?
of all, there was no 23andMe to your 1/16th at the time there is now. And third, Pete, to your point, what was the motivation? Because have you seen the commercials for 23andMe where you have the guy that's dancing in like the German outfit and singing German songs and he finds out I'm not German and now he's wearing a kilt?
But Leslie, I want to ask you about how this plays in a Democratic primary for 2020 based on the fact that Trump goaded her into this. He's the one who dared her to take a DNA test. She rolled out this elaborate campaign, which is still up on her website and her Twitter feed, by the way. She's not taking that down. How does this play in a primary that is based a lot on identity politics? Isn't this cultural appropriation?
No, it's not going to affect her at all. First of all, I don't think she's no. I don't.
Never escape.
Wait a minute. She may never escape it, right? But I don't. You asked me about among the Democratic voters, the people that are very much supportive of her, many of which, quite frankly, are supportive of Bernie Sanders. They're going to split that vote, by the way. Are still going to back her, especially those in Massachusetts, and a lot of women who are looking for another female because Hillary
Leslie,
failed,
you have said that she likely wouldn't make it anyway.
No, I don't think that she'll be the nominee.
So why stay in it at this point?
Well, we were talking about that off the air, right? A little off the air.
A lot of advantages to being a president.
It wasn't off the record.
I don't know if they get book
deals.
They get book deals. They get they get book deals. They get TV deals, and put their name out there further.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we will see if she survives. I'm with Pete. I don't think she does.
We don't know.
I don't think.
In making his case for a border wall, President Trump framing the immigration battle as a class division, saying wealthy elites can hide behind walls. Whether this argument makes the case for a compromise or if the president will act alone.
Wealthy politicians and donors push for open borders while living their lives behind walls and gates and guards.